Now, continuing with the Itaewon tragedy, a special investigation is underway, as many may know already, with many witnesses and other individuals being questioned as the nation's investigative body looks to understand more about the tragedy of what happened on October 29th. 158 people are now confirmed to have died from the tragic crowd crush. And as the investigation continues, we ask what the focus of the inquiry will be. We connect with Professor CHO Hee-kyoung from Hongik University's College of Law. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Now, many government officials have been called up for investigation, but I wanted to ask about the focus of this investigation. Is the focus on whether the government could have prevented the tragedy, or is the focus on whether government didn't respond well to the emergency situation?
So looking at the people who are currently charged and the scope of investigation, it seems that the focus right now is very much on how the emergency services and the police have responded to the tragedy on the night, rather than whether this could have been prevented and what the government could have done more to prevent it. And in fact, this is the reason why I think a lot of people are concerned about the investigation, because a disaster like this that ended up in crush death that has killed so many people is not something that you can really respond to very well when it actually happens. So, things you do after the disaster occurs is really not a lot that you can do there. It's not like you have hours of golden time. You literally have minutes where you can actually save people's lives. And here, prevention was much more important than any sort of response to it afterwards. And the fact that the investigation seems to be very much focused on frontline officers, people such as the chief of the fire station in Itaewon, who were actually at the scene, and people like that. I think this is what's causing people a lot of concern.
Right. And also, essentially, the nation's police will be investigating police officers themselves. Will this affect the course of the investigation in any way?
This is another concern that people have raised, that essentially this kind of self-investigation is not likely to be done properly, and they may essentially let people go who should actually be charged. But I think that actually there's an opposite concern, because this is one really big investigation that the police has to do on themselves, since the separation of powers occurred between the prosecution and the police. And the police now have a lot more investigation powers compared to previously. And they will be under a lot of pressure to show result, because this is such a huge investigation of national interest. And so my concern is that they may actually bring undue pressure on people that they are investigating. And we have already seen that 2 people who have been under investigation by the police have taken their lives. We are not entirely clear as to the circumstances of their deaths, but most likely it came about as a result of the stress and the pressure that they have been put under due to the investigation. And so rather than the concern about self-investigation resulting in proper inquiry, I actually have the opposite concern, that they might be bringing undue pressure to bear on people. And the second thing about that is that they're not really investigating the people who are at the top of the chain of command. I have heard an analogy being made about the situation to a person, where right now they're investigating the hands and the feet, whereas the hands and the feet don't actually move on themselves of their own accord. They only act in accordance with the directions given by the brain, and they haven't really looked at what the brain had been doing. And so that's what's lacking, I feel, in this current investigation.
Right, and regardless, there's huge pressure on the police agency right now. But the Special Investigation Unit has also called up individuals that were caught on camera as possible instigators of the tragedy. How likely is it that individuals like this will be indicted for causing this?
So certainly there might be part of the investigation, but I think it will be very difficult to put the entire responsibility or blame on those individuals. We'll have to see what kind of evidence they unearth, but already they've had one red herring in the shape of a man who was accused to have pushed people wearing bunny ear costume. And more recently, they are accusing two other people wearing traditional masks of spilling or deliberately spilling oil on the street, making it slippery. But once again, we come back to the point that this kind of disaster can only be really prevented by having proper preventative measures in the first place, and taking those kind of rescue efforts afterwards is already too late. And so I feel that the focus of investigation really should have been, where were the mobile units that should have been in place to control the crowd? Where were, the police officers who could be directing traffic? And where were, the signs to redirect traffic to other places? And those kind of very simple measures that they should have taken, and they could have taken easily before the disaster actually happened.
Well, Professor, thank you so much for your insights this morning. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.